Iain Duncan Smith, the Work and Pension Secretary, is with me. Mr. Duncan Smith, welcome. Have you had conversations with the Chancellor about the cuts that you'll make in the welfare budget if you win?
None of the stuff that you've seen reported in any way have I discussed with him particularly, but it's my job to actually put the plan together and to be able to present this idea of how we actually save 12 billion. Can I just say a couple of things about this, because as you led with this, the first is that, you know, department like the Work and Pensions always churns away looking at elements in advance, both of this government coming back or another government coming back, puts figures together. You know, in the list that they produced, which some bitter individual has decided to release out as though it's policy, it's not. But a couple of those things, for example, have been in spending reviews for the last 5 years. And we've taken different positions. For example, carers allowance. You know, with carers allowance, actually quite the contrary. We've raised carers allowance and we've added an element of carers allowance into universal credit. So I can't on this programme obviously go through, and I'm not going to write the spending review, but what I will say to you is, if you look back over our record over the last 5 years, when I walked through the door in 2010 and I made the changes, you know, capping housing benefit, looking to change things on the spare room subsidy, putting a cap on benefit for people, I was told that people would be driven into homelessness, there'd be people on the streets, there'd be people moving hundreds of miles to other cities. None of that happened. You know, what we've seen is arrears have fallen, homelessness has not risen. In fact, it's half the high peak in 2003, and millions have gone back to work, more people in work than ever before. So, can I just say, spending more money does not necessarily mean improved lives. It's about where you make the changes to reduce that spending.
I absolutely get that. However, can I ask, first of all, the triple lock on pensions remains. That's absolutely clear. Pensioners are not going to be hit under any circumstances.
We've already made that clear. But we also, by the way, put a down payment, though, on the 12 billion. Just to remind you, we've already talked about an extended, no, there's more than that. We put an extension already, sorry, we put an extension on the freeze, so that actually helps save money. And we've also already talked about lowering the cap to average earnings at 23,000. That is already in place. So about a quarter of what is required is already been publicly announced by the Chancellor and myself in the autumn of last year. So our dedication and determination to reduce this is clear, and I believe it is feasible, but it will change and improve people's lives at the same time.
What about lowering the cap to reflect the different regional prices of labour and so forth?
Well, Labour's talked about this, but I always say that that is an incredibly complicated way of doing something, because, you know, for example, take Scotland, take Aberdeen. You know, Aberdeen has had often London prices, but the rural element of it has much lower income.
So it's too difficult to do, in effect.
Those sort of things I've always thought are too difficult to do, but I'm not going to start ruling things in or anything like that at this stage.
But having said that you're not going to make changes to pensioners, that leaves you with in-work benefits. It's really the only thing that you can target, which is why when you get a list like this one, looking at carers allowance, looking at the disabled, looking at many other things, including industrial injuries, people say, well, those are the kind of things that Iain Duncan Smith must intend to do.
Yes, but again, you know,
because there's nothing else you can do.
I know, and when we're right and when we're ready, we will talk about what we plan to do. But there are lots of things that we want to do which are actually about changing lives. And I'll give you a good example.
Will people know by the time of the election manifesto? Will they know before they vote what you plan to do?
Well, they know for certain that we are going to save that 12 billion. And I must just say...
will they know how?
Well, you know, we may not decide that it's relevant to put something out there about some of those changes. But what I am saying to you is that the public cannot doubt for one moment. Let's just take the existing position. I was told that in this final year of the spending review, we would have to save £18 billion. I was told that was not feasible. We have saved £21 billion and £50 billion overall. And the total savings of £12 billion represents, and this is where I disagree with Paul Johnson slightly, it's less than 10% of the welfare budget. So the point that I'm making is that I believe that in all of that, we have actually improved people's lives. People have gone back to work. More disabled people are in work than ever before, more women are in work than ever before, and the economy is now moving faster than any G7.
Any of that.
So all of that says reform of welfare is necessary. That reduces the cost to taxpayers, because after all, taxpayers pay.
I'm not challenging that. What I'm saying to you is, if I was on welfare, if I was on disability benefit, and I was told that you were taking £12 billion out of the budget, and I would really need to know before I voted, was I going to be hit? Or if I didn't know that, I'd have to assume that I was going to be hit.
Well, all I can say to anybody who
Surely that's honest politics.
Well,
you have to
I tell you what's
what
honest.
you plan to do.
I tell you what's honest. Throughout all of my changes, we have protected the most disabled. We have kept disability benefits out of the freeze. and we've
Will that
supported those
continue?
as a support group. Well, as I said, as and when the time is right, we will make it very clear what our position is. But the reality, though, I keep coming back to, Andrew, is this. There is a very simple choice on this matter. You know, here we have
if people don't understand what you're going to do because you won't tell them, there isn't a simple choice.
No, I have told them. I've already told them that a quarter of the amount that we need to save is already out there as a good indication that we know where we're going to go to be able to make those savings. What throughout I've always said is I didn't come into this job after years looking at this to just make cheese-paring cuts. What we've come in to do is to reform the welfare system so that we don't waste money on organisations and groups and things that don't actually help life change.
Okay.
And so there's lots going on. But one other point.
What about limiting child tax relief to 2 children for people on benefit?
Look, all these things are out there. They're all being discussed. I cannot, on this programme, and will not on this programme, quite legitimately, try and write the next spending review. What I will say to you is that there are some things that we will do and want to do that are of life-changing, dramatic effect. And that is about getting people back to work and improving their life chances. Take, for example, the sickness benefit changes we've made. Those benefit changes alone, if you go back before 2010... But you won't
tell us whether you're going to limit child benefit to 2 people.
But I'm not going to tell you now. As I said before, it's not feasible for me to write the next spending review.
I mean, you must have...
Well, I know you'd love it if I sat here and did it, but I'm not going to do it here.
But you must know what you're going to do by now, in which case you're simply not telling people what you're going to do.
As I said...
While saying we're going to have huge cuts, but we're not going to tell you what they
are.
are.
Andrew, as and when...
I
can tell you now, no decisions have been made. As and when decisions are made, of course, we will be very open to the public. But can I just say one...
So you don't actually know which cuts are going to happen exactly?
I haven't made decisions, and we haven't made decisions because it would be dishonest for me to say we've made decisions, but we're just going to keep it all secret. That's not the case. I've been honest with the British people from day one that where we've made changes, we've been open, and I've said that these changes would improve the quality of lives. And I have to tell you, right now, our welfare reforms have improved the quality of life for the vast majority of the British people and also saving taxpayers' money, which is the key point.
So you know that 12 billion can be saved.
I do.
But you have not decided how you're going to save it.
Well, exactly. I know that it is feasible to save £12 billion. It is less than 10% of the overall budget. But here's the point.
But there is no, as it were, genuine document like this inside your department.
Look, there will be loads and loads of things that people are looking at because that's what departments do. And, you know, as I said, some of these things I've seen since the beginning of the spending reviews, and we have rejected.
And have rejected again.
Yeah, time and again. So my point is, but I can just make this point? It's very important because you pressed me on this, and I want to say this very simple. Look, yes, we are committed to making 12 billion of savings because we believe the economy will benefit from that. But I have to say, I listened to the interview you had with Douglas Alexander, and you asked him a very simple question, how much of this is tax rises? And he didn't give you an answer. I actually know that they have already said that at least half of the 30 billion that has to be saved will be in tax rises. That means ordinary working people, because they wouldn't be saving money from welfare, actually they're going to spend more on welfare, means that taxpayers will end up paying more, both because they spend more on welfare and average taxpayer will pay more because they're going to borrow more because they won't cut the deficit. I think that's a stark choice at the next election. Do you want a party that's already proven it can reform welfare and save money, or do you want a party that will not reform any welfare, will spend more and raise your taxes because they are not clever about what they do?
We're about to hit what you call Pension Freedom Day, when a huge torrent of money is going to be released from annuities so people can spend them as they want. And already there's a lot of cold calling going on. A lot of financial companies are getting in touch with people and saying, got fantastic products, amazing rates of interest. Now, for all those people who, like me, may have the kind of financial abilities of a drunk blue bottle.
I'm sure that's not true.
It more or less is, I have to say. Are you absolutely convinced you have put into place the safeguards which will stop people being ripped off when they take that money out?
Yes, I think so. When I say I think so, because it's what we're doing is building this process. There are 2 or 3 things we've done. The first is this live service, which is available to people, which is about making sure people have an advice service. So what's happened is we've already had about 500,000...
These are not trained in pensions. These are not sophisticated pensions advisors.
No, but what they are trained, however, very carefully. Pensions Advisory Service are manning the telephones. They're doing that. You've got Citizens Advice that will be doing the face-to-face. and my own department is supporting the Treasury, because this is the Treasury's advisory service. We will be supporting them.
So there will be qualified people?
Yeah, they are. They've gone through a training program, and the idea here is that people about 500,000 people have already visited the website, and there have been about 10,000 people booking through the telephone system appointments, and all those who are eligible have now been contacted. So the point here is they'll be advised to think carefully about what they're doing, to look at what the range of products is, and if they raise an issue or a query about some spectacular product, the advisors will say, you be very careful about going and seeing and taking independent advice. Don't accept it. And by the way, one other thing, someone selling you a product, by the way, will have committed an offence now if they do not tell you that this product is not the right product for you. They will commit an offence and will be prosecuted.
Do you agree with Steve Webb, your colleague, that people should wait for 10 years before deciding what to do with this money?
I agree with Steve in this matter that people should take their time to think about this. April the 6th is not the beginning and the end. April the 6th is only the start. And the point is there's about £140 billion worth of funds on defined contributions that people will now change. But they can choose for the first time to have the freedom to do the right thing for their own money. After all, annuities locked in under the recession would have been very unpopular, unfair. Now we've freed them from that and they have more choice.
One other question on this, which I asked the Chancellor about, and he said I was being incredibly patronising. What happens if Andrew Marr, with the financial instincts of a drunken bluebottle, goes off and spends all the money and squanders it, and then comes back to the state with these handouts saying, give me more money? Are you going to penalise people who blow their savings in terms of their future welfare entitlements?
First of all, I don't think that the vast, vast majority of people would ever look at their savings that have to cover them through their lifetime in that way. But the second point the second point is you continue to receive what is this new reform, the single state pension, which will be above the means test. So you will get that basic income. And if there are any fall-off in incomes, of course, the welfare system supports people. But my general view is this.
But you won't look back at what they have done with their pension money as part of how you assess them.
This is called pension freedom. And what we're saying is we, particularly the Conservative Party, but also the Liberals at this point, actually trust people to make the best decisions for themselves, having the best advice. And that really means that you can pass stuff on to your children. You don't have to sit with a frozen annuity that was frozen at the time of the recession. You actually can put things into property if that's a better investment for you. This is what people want.
That. Let me move on to general politics, because you're a former party leader, you understand these things. When David Cameron says that he's going to serve a full term and then give up, does that mean that in 2020 the Conservative Party goes into a general election with no leader at all? How does that work?
No, obviously the way that all comes about will have to be discussed, but I can just set the scenes for this. We are in a different world now than we were, say, when I was leader or when William Hague was leader. In those days, we didn't have fixed-term parliaments. The Prime Minister could call an election after 3.5 years or 4 years if they wanted. So it's very difficult to say what a full term was. Now, under a fixed-term parliament, you know it's 5 years.
You do, but you also have to have that election contest before the election. Otherwise, the public has no idea. So there has to be an election contest. He can't serve an absolute full term. He has to stand down at some point during the next parliament to allow your colleagues to choose a new leader.
He does, but I have huge faith in the Prime Minister. I think, given the nature of the terrible circumstances we inherited, and under his leadership we've turned the economy around, he's taken the tough decisions, he will do what he says, which is he will serve what essentially is a full term. Of course, if and when that date is fixed, and he will fix it...
Essentially, he has to stand down before the election, however...
Whatever else, of course there'll be a competition at some point, but I have to tell you, that will be a competition on the back of a successful Prime Minister doing something that most Prime Ministers have never done before, saying, I know when it's time to go. You know, you've had to literally wrap the knuckles off of people like Gordon Brown and previous Prime Ministers to get them to think about going. He's actually very keen to say there is a limit, there's an amount of time that a Prime Minister should serve before they get stale, and he's right about that.
But if he's thinking about the party as well as himself, which I'm sure he is, he needs there to be enough time for a new leader to have established him or herself in the public mind, to be well locked in there, which means that there ought to be, as it were, an election way before the election, possibly 2018, that kind of thing. Otherwise, you have a brand new leader, the country hasn't had a chance to look at them properly.
Well, first of all, I don't think you're going to have, in any shape or form, a brand new leader that the country has never seen, because all the kind of people that might want to stand for that will have been up in the public sphere for some time. I'm not going to name names.
Well, I know.
But I'm simply saying.
I'm going to ask you: do you endorse
it.
the Prime Minister's list of 3? Does that seem a sort of plausible kind of list to you?
You know, having been leader of the Conservative Party, of a party that was quite interested in having a fight in an empty room in those days, but now has changed and wants to have power, I've given up making predictions about who should be doing what. I know that those who want to throw their hat in the ring will throw it very hard, and those that don't will think about it. But I have to tell you, I have huge faith. I think this Prime Minister has done a fantastic job, and I think I'll be sorry to see him go, as and when he chooses to do that, because we have turned the economy around under his stewardship.
Iain Duncan Smith, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. And now